we've discussed a number of times on the show before how the Chinese regime basically uses all tools to wage war, as they call it, the unrestricted warfare doctrine, so to speak, right? Now, my question is, so one of the things that you talked about here at CPAC today is the fentanyl and the use of fentanyl in that way, before we go into more sort of conventional ideas of war, which is something that I've started being very concerned about lately. But tell me a little bit about where things stand with the fentanyl flows.
China is intentionally killing tens of thousands of Americans each year with fentanyl. Fentanyl is a synthetic drug. It is manufactured in Chinese labs. Sometimes it's sent here directly. Sometimes precursor drugs are sent to other countries like Mexico and then smuggled across our border. Also, the Chinese fentanyl gangs are setting up shop in Vancouver. They've been there for some time, and they're smuggling it across our northern border as well. The reason why we talked about fentanyl at CPAC is because we have a border crisis. And because of that, our U.S. Customs and Border Protection agents are just being overwhelmed. They are being overwhelmed by people coming across our border, and they don't have the resources to catch the fentanyl. So fentanyl is now coming into the U.S. in record volumes across our southern border. Now, these fentanyl gangs are large, they're international, and in China's near total surveillance state, Beijing obviously knows what's going on and obviously approves of what's going on. So we have to assume that China deliberately wants Americans dead from this drug. If they wanted to stop fentanyl drugs, they could do it tomorrow. They could do it today, but they don't. So that shows the maliciousness of the Chinese regime. We live in a democracy, and we have a hard time understanding the concept of evil. The Chinese Communist Party is evil, and we can see this from what it's doing. It wants to be the world's #1 country. It's got this notion of comprehensive national power, which they actually borrowed from the Soviets, which is a series of metrics to rank the strength of countries. And there's two ways to become #1. You can strengthen yourself, which is fine, or you can weaken everybody else. And what China is doing with fentanyl is weakening the United States.
And how is that? Has the trajectory of basically the flow of fentanyl changed in recent times? I guess this is what I'm trying to get at.
Well, from what we can tell, the flow of fentanyl has certainly increased in recent months because of what I mentioned, that the Border Protection agents are no longer able to deal with the Mexican cartels that mix the precursor drugs from China and make fentanyl. And we don't know the exact number of deaths from fentanyl each year in the U.S. I mean, I've heard the number 53,000 for last year, but I don't know if it's true or not. But it's a hard thing to actually put our finger on because it's not only deaths from fentanyl directly, it's increasingly deaths from cocaine, methamphetamines, and marijuana, which have been mixed with fentanyl. So this is a drug epidemic which is becoming worse year by year.
Well, and so, you did a session today. The World War III was in the title. I've been looking at, you actually have a piece recently that I was looking at, talking about various indicators on for example, the Indian border and so forth, that China is kind of readying for some sort of conflict. There's talk of these gray zone operations with respect to Taiwan, and this, of course, a lot of saber rattling, a lot more overflights and so forth. So, where are we at overall in terms of, very real prospects of Chinese aggression?
Well, there's a growing awareness in Washington of the aggressiveness of China and the danger, but I don't think that we are as aware as we should be, largely because China is making moves which, at least on their face, are exceedingly dangerous, and we're not taking the appropriate steps. So I'm afraid that although there's more and more awareness of the China threat, that awareness has not caught up with the reality of what Beijing is actually doing.